Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever felt completely crushed by IRS penalties? Well, everyday taxpayers just got handed a massive secret weapon. We're diving into a recent, totally game-changing legal ruling that has the potential to literally wipe out years of late fees and interest that the IRS charged individuals and small businesses during the pandemic. If you filed late, paid late, or if you're sitting on an outstanding balance from the COVID era right now, you are really going to want to pay close attention to this. Think back to those chaotic COVID years. Did the IRS actually illegally charge you penalties? A lot of us were hit with crazy late fees during that time and felt, completely overwhelmed. But here is the wild part. A new ruling from the Court of Federal Claims suggests the government might actually owe you that money back. The IRS always acted like these penalty deadlines were set in stone, but the courts, they're finally saying otherwise. Millions of us fell straight into what I like to call the penalty trap. Between 2019 and 2022, life was completely upended. And yeah, tax filing slipped for a lot of people. Folks often end up with these large balances, and what they don't realize is that the penalty for failing to file is actually way worse than the penalty for failing to pay. It creates this massive financial trap, just piling up heavy fines and compounding interest that literally left taxpayers drowning in red notices. But then comes a major plot twist from the Court of Federal Claims. Let's look at Section 1. Enter the Kwong decision. It all started with an everyday taxpayer named Terry Kwong. He had some tax penalties stretching way back, and the IRS basically scooped up a massive 2016 overpayment he made just to cover his old debts. When Kwong asked for a refund on those penalties, the IRS said, "Nope, you missed the 2-year deadline." But Kwong actually pushed back. He fought the system, and the court ruled in his favor, using this rarely discussed procedural rule that completely flips everything we thought we knew about COVID-era tax deadlines. The magic bullet here is Section 75008A-D. Congress enacted this back in 2019. Before this rule, disaster relief from the IRS was totally up to them. They just handed it out in piecemeal notices whenever they felt like it. But this new section, it's what you call a mandatory self-executing law. That means it automatically hits pause on tax deadlines for qualified taxpayers during a federally declared disaster. It's not just a suggestion for the IRS, it's a mandatory suspension of the rules. To really put this into perspective, just look at what Erin Collins, the National Taxpayer Advocate, had to say about it. She wrote, "By the court's logic, the IRS should not have assessed penalties for late filing or payment during that 3.5-year period, nor charged interest on those amounts. So even the top advocate inside the system is admitting that because of this law, the IRS effectively had to pause the clock on your penalties." So, exactly how long was this magical pause? Let's get into Section 2, stopping the penalty clock. Here is where the math gets absolutely incredible. The court says your tax deadlines and penalty accruals were completely frozen for this entire timeline. The COVID emergency was officially declared starting January 2020. That disaster period didn't officially end until May 11, 2023. Now, under the law, you get an automatic, mandatory extension of 60 days past the end of the disaster. That brings us all the way to July 10, 2023. We are talking about a continuous 39-month pause. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Normally, if your 2020 return was due in April 2021 and you didn't file, late penalties start piling up immediately. But thanks to the Kwong ruling, that whole disaster period basically doesn't exist for penalties. In the eyes of the law, your return wasn't actually late at all. Those penalties do not legally start until July 10, 2023. It wipes out literally years of potential fines. Think about what this means for you. Your returns for 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 were technically not due until July 11, 2023. If you had a balance, or if you filed late for any of those 4 years, or even if you already paid the penalties, you could have a huge chunk of that interest and those penalties completely wiped out or refunded. It is a total calendar reset in your favor. But hey, what if you're in the middle of a fight with the IRS right now? Let's jump to Section 3, Open Exams and IRS Battles. This ruling is an absolute game changer. If you're under audit or in an open exam right now, you can literally use this as leverage to settle with appeals officers. You can file protective claims right in the middle of an audit. You can use it to argue that your interest accruals should be paused. And get this, it might even help folks in bankruptcy court. Usually there's a super harsh rule where if you file even 1 day late, you can't get that tax debt discharged. But if Kwong pushed your real due date to July 2023 and you filed before then, you suddenly weren't late anymore. Now, as with anything involving the IRS, there is a massive catch to this underdog story. Let's look at Section 4, the mid-2026 ticking clock. 2026, specifically July 10, 2026. See, normally you have 3 years from the time you file a return to claim a refund. Since the extended disaster deadline ended in July 2023, you add 3 years to that, and boom, the statute of limitations for these specific protective refund claims is going to expire for most folks right in the middle of 2026. Look, the government absolutely hates uncertainty, and they definitely hate owing you money, so legal experts fully expect the Department of Justice to appeal this decision. But here's the thing, you absolutely cannot sit around and wait for the courts to figure it out years from now. You have to file your protective claims right now before your specific 3-year window slams shut. If you wait, the clock runs out and you get nothing. All right, let's talk about how to actually get your money back. Moving to Section 5. Your refund action checklist. Okay, here is your game plan. Step 1. Pull your IRS account transcripts for 2019 through 2022. Step 2. Find any penalties or interest you were charged during that massive disaster window. And Step 3. File Form 843. That is the official claim for refund and request for abatement. You will definitely want to team up with a tax professional to run the exact numbers and make sure this is submitted correctly. Make sure you double-check this list against your own records. We're looking at 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 returns. Do you have any outstanding balances? Did you pay any of those huge failure-to-file penalties? Oh, and here's a good one. If the IRS gave you a refund back then but skipped out on paying you overpayment interest, they might owe you for that too. Claims that got denied before might suddenly be totally wide open for reconsideration. So this leaves us with one really big question. The IRS clock is relentlessly ticking down to July 2026. Are you going to step up and claim the refund that is legally yours? The government is not going to just voluntarily hand this cash back, and the window of opportunity is closing fast. Go dig up those past returns, talk to a pro, and do not let this massive financial secret go to waste. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.